Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Dear students, in today's module, we are going to discuss on impacts of large-scale exploitation of hydropower and other renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources are available in unlimited amount and are obtained from natural resources like hydropower, solar, biomass, wind, tidal, geothermal, etc. The promotion of renewable energy in India has assumed great importance in the recent years. This is because of the high growth rate of energy consumption, especially due to high demand of the coal and heavy dependence of the import of the crude oils. So in this section, we will emphasize mainly on large-scale exploitation of hydropower, biomass, tidal, and geothermal with their impacts on the ecosystem. In this module, we are going to familiarize with the impacts of the hydropower, geothermal energy, biomass and the tidal energy. Let's start with hydropower. Hydropower means through power of water. It is derived from the force of moving water. The movement of water generates more energy than wind as it is much denser than the air. It is the energy which can be produced through the gravitational force of water. The dams are constructed for the hydroelectricity production. These dams collect the water and then let it flow through the mechanical turbines. The water pressure forces the turbine to turn, which causes generation of mechanical energy which is converted into electricity. In this process, the energy generated is easily adjusted to the level of demand by regulating the outflow of water. The hilly regions and highland areas are mainly selected for the generation of hydrothermal energy. It is one of the most important sources of energy which is clean and pollution free. Now we will see what are the impact of the heavy exploitation of this hydropower. The countries like Norway, Canada and Brazil have all been utilizing more than 30% of their hydro potential, while India ranks 5th in terms of exploitable hydro potential in the world. The large hydropower accounts 18% of the world's energy production from the renewables. And the hydropower energy is one of the major renewable sources of the energy, which accounts for 122 terawatt hour. The construction of dams plays significant role in hydropower energy generation. The dams are used for the multiple purposes like agricultural irrigation, flood control and recreation purpose. It has several advantages and disadvantages on human, animals and the ecosystem. What are the ecological impacts of hydropower? The adverse ecological effects during its operation are from the disturbance of the wildlife by equipment noise, site inspection and maintenance activity, exposure of biota to contaminants, and mortality of birds due to collisions with the project facilities, and or electrocution by transmission lines. Wildlife is affected by habitat fragmentation or the presence of barriers in fenced areas, canals or above ground pipelines, utility right of way and access roads. In addition, the presence of the hydropower project and its associated access roads and these right of ways may increase the human use of surrounding areas, which could in turn impact ecological resources in the surrounding areas. The introduction and spread of invasive vegetation is another impact. Disturbance of habitats, mortality of wildlife from vehicles, increase in hunting includes the poaching, increased potential for fire, the physical barriers to the fish migration, flow alteration and fluctuations, and biological impacts of flow fluctuations are other ecological impacts of the large-scale exploitation of hydropower. What are the impact of hydropower on the fish and other aquatic life? The hydroelectric projects greatly affect life of fish and also other aquatic life. The fishery is positively affected by the hydroelectric project by increasing the area of available aquatic habitat. But it has always negative net impacts, particularly in the downstream river. In several cases, the migration pathway of fishes also reduced by construction of dams. For example, the construction of Faraka Dam on Ganga River reduced Hilsa fish migratory pathway. Before the construction of Faraka Dam, Hilsa fish was found up to Allahabad region of Ganga River. In addition, the fish and other organisms can be injured and killed by turbine blades. you see the wildlife impacts, the dam construction causes habitat destruction and habitat fragmentation of wildlife, the death of aquatic organisms, and the reservoir of water is usually more stagnant than normal river water. As a result, the reservoir will have higher amount of sediments and nutrient deposit that cause an excess growth of algae, lead to eutrophication and other aquatic wastes growth. It can cause reduction in the dissolved oxygen in water that lead to death of fish and other aquatic organisms. In addition, the water is lost through evaporation in dammed reservoir at a much higher rate than in flowing rivers. In this table, you can see the direct and indirect impacts of dams. The direct impacts like habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, direct loss of the species, impediments to the species migration, genetic isolation of population, and invasive species propagation. While in the indirect impact, you can see the water quality deterioration, hydrological flow regime change, changes to the natural shorelines in the riparian ecosystem, changes to sediment patterns, changes to flooding regimes, and increased pressure on natural resources. Now, what are the impact of this hydropower on human health and safety? The possible impacts on health and safety during the operations include exposure to the electromagnetic fields and accidental worker injury or death during the operation and maintenance activities. Many of same hazards occur to the installers, operators, and maintenance personnel working around with or on hydropower facilities and equipments. The hydropower safety issues include falls, confined space entry, fire, lockout or tagout, medical and first aid, crane, derrick and hose safety, electrical safety, machine guarding and respiratory protection. Worker health and safety issues also include working in potential weather extremes and possible exposure to the hazards of the nature, such as uneven terrain and dangerous plants, animals and insects. The risk to the public of unlawful accidental death or the injury is also an impact. However, the access to the impoundment or tail race would be cause for the accidents. But this hydropower has positive impacts like electricity generation. Once the dam is constructed, energy can be produced at constant rate for many years. Due to the rainfall, hence the rate of hydroelectricity remains somewhat constant, and the cost of electricity production do not change as the usual. This hydropower source can lighten the country all the year. Jawaharlal Nehru proudly proclaimed that dams as the temples of modern India, as it was felt at that time that the construction of large dams would solve many problems of India. It would result in the generation of electricity that would provide water for irrigation to the farmers and supply water to household and industries. The main purpose of launching multi-purpose river projects in India was to combine the development of agriculture and village economy with rapid industrialization and urbanization. So the major use or the advantage of the hydropower is the electricity production. The next positive impact is on the food production. It is expected that 40% of the world food production comes from the irrigated farming, with a direct 16% contribution from land irrigated from dam reservoirs. Another positive impact is that it is pollution free. The electricity generated from hydropower is pollution free, as there is no air or water pollutants are produced in this process. The water used does not contaminate the air or water by producing harmful waste. No poisonous byproducts are produced during this process. The only pollution occurs when construction of this massive power plant takes place is during the construction time. It also helps to fight climate change. The hydroelectric power plants produces very small amounts of greenhouse gases compared to your power plants driven by fossil fuel like gas, coal or crude oil. Hydroelectricity can help retarding this global warming. It was reported that today, hydroelectricity prevents the emission of greenhouse gases corresponding to the burning of 4.4 million barrels of petroleum per day worldwide. It also saves the natural resources, as the hydropower does not use any fuel or fossil fuel, so it is saved. It helps in maintaining the ecological balance. It's flexible in nature, and the energy generated from hydropower is flexible whenever the low energy required flow can be reduced by adjusting the water flow. It also helps in the water conservation to meet the demands. So, it has a dual advantage of electricity generation as well as water conservation. It is also used for the recreation purposes. The lake that forms behind the dam can be used for tourist activity like water sports and recreational activity. It also has some economic impacts. Most of the world's largest dams have not been able to achieve the technical, economic and social objectives for which they were made. Many of the dams are not even able to recover their cost and fallen short of their target, hence less profitable in economic terms as expected. It has impact on population. The construction of dams has large impact on the population residing in that area. In many cases, it causes mobilization and displacement of people from that area to other places that cause problem in their settlement. Most of the villages get flooded due to dams construction and causes severe impact on people residing in those areas. So, these are the impacts, positive as well as negative impacts of hydropower exploitation. Let's see what are the impact of biomass energy production. It includes the positive impacts like pollution free or the pollution is less than the fossil fuel. The burning of biomass releases lower levels of carbon dioxide and other emissions when burned. Although the production of biofuels creates carbon dioxide as a byproduct, it is frequently used to grow the plants that will be converted into the fuel. So, it acts like it is more close to a self-sustaining system. The burning of biomass is considered as carbon neutral because it releases about the same amount of carbon dioxide captured by the photosynthesis. Pollution and global warming. The combustion of biomass produces carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, NOx that is nitrogen oxides, VOCs volatile organic compounds, particulates and other pollutants at levels above those from traditional fuel sources such as coal or natural gas in some cases, such as with indoor heating and cooking. The burning of biomass also produces several harmful byproducts like black carbon, which is a potent global warming causing pollutant. So, this is a negative impact of the biomass burning. Nowadays, this is a common scene during the winter time. It creates even smoke also or reduces the visibility. It reduces the dependency on the import. The biomass which is locally available and it decreases dependency on energy import. It is used to produce different products. Biomass can be converted into several products through various processes. The product obtained through different thermochemical and biochemical processes are good sources of fuel. But it has disadvantages like initial cost is high. In most of the lignocellulosic biomass, it requires pre-treatment for the energy conversion. It has low efficiency. The burning wood on a log boiler requires more energy to produce the same heat as fossil fuel. So, as a large amount of fuel is required. It also has an impact on the food security. The first generation biofuel is mainly produced from feedstocks such as corn, potato, sugarcane, which are edible in nature. If these edible crops are used for the generation of biofuel, it may cause severe impact on the availability of food and thereby can lead to starvation among the population. In addition to that, land availability for food production will also get reduced. The growing use of the biofuels may just mean a rise in the food prices as well. Another impact is on the use of fertilizers. Biofuels is produced from crops and these crops need fertilizer to grow better. The excess application of fertilizers can have harmful effects on surrounding environment and can cause water pollution and it can also lead to eutrophication. The fertilizer contain nitrogen and phosphorus. So, these are the factors that lead to eutrophication. They can be washed away from soil to nearby lake, river or pond and can lead to eutrophication. The next is the geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is the natural heat generated from the earth mainly in the form of thermal energy. It is usually produced from the process like earth formation and radioactive decay. It is in the form of dry stream, wet stream, hot water deposits and geopressurized deposit. The operation and maintenance of production and injection wells and pipeline systems, operation and maintenance of the power plant, waste management and maintenance and replacement of facility components of this geothermal energy in some way or other create impacts. Let's see what are the impacts of this geothermal energy. It has impact on air quality. The fluid emerges out from earth underground surface have high amount of gases and pollutant like methane, carbon dioxide, NOx, ammonia and hydrogen sulfide, depending on the geological condition of that field. Most of the chemicals are present in liquid form which is re-injected into earth through drilling. The concentration of the gases are usually not harmful and the removal of, for example, the hydrogen sulfide from the geothermal steam is a routine matter in geothermal power stations where the gas content is high. The range in carbon dioxide emissions from high temperature geothermal fields used for electricity production in the world is around 13 to 380 gram per kilowatt hour, whereas the carbon dioxide emissions are 453 gram per kilowatt hour for natural gas, 906 gram per kilowatt hour for oil and 1042 gram per kilowatt hour for coal. The sulfur emissions are also significantly less for geothermal than fossil fuel electric power stations. The amount, duration, location and characteristics of the emissions and the meteorological conditions like wind speed and direction, precipitation, relative humidity influence the level of impacts. It produces, this geothermal energy production produces some toxic substances. Sometimes with gases and hot water, toxic compounds such as arsenic, boron, antimony and radioactive compounds are also emerging out from underground surface. So, a proper monitoring and management can solve this issue and we need the proper monitoring in this aspect. Its impact on the ecological resources. The geothermal energy generation has great impact on ecological resources such as vegetation, wildlife, aquatic biota and special status species and their habitat during the operation and maintenance phase, exploration and drilling and construction phases. These activities decrease the acreage for the foraging and migrating animals and fragmenting habitat. There is a noise creation at the site of execution of this project. The risk of fire, especially in arid or semi-arid areas of project execution, is also more. It has impact on water resources. The replenishment of geothermal reservoir through re-injection is very essential and it exerts pressure on water resources during the operation and maintenance phase. The evaporation increases the water demand. For example, the flash steam facilities lose up to 20% of its cooling water due to evaporation. The pipeline failures or surface discharge also adds to the water loss. The discharge of coolant water or water from geothermal wells to the land or to an evaporation pond greatly affects the quality of shallow groundwater. It has impact on the visual resources. The aesthetic view of the area is adversely affected during 10 to 30 year life of that geothermal development process. The development of infrastructure, vehicular traffic to the site and release of steam plumes from the geothermal power plant also affect the visual resources. The impact of geothermal power plant on the socioeconomics. These projects had benefits such as providing employment opportunities, monies to the local contractors and recycled revenues through the local economy. For example, the operation of a typical 50 megawatt power plant and related transmission line would provide an estimated 93 jobs and $8 million income. The income generation varies with the stages of construction of power plant. The alteration of land use for the geothermal development such as recreation, grazing and hunting had economic impacts. It has high investment cost. It has high initial investment cost for individual households as well as there is a certain amount of land required for the system to be installed, making geothermal systems impossible to be implemented for the houses. It is location specific. Geothermal energy is non-uniform and the tectonic fault lines and the geothermal activity are related and mostly the geothermal power plants are highly effective in those spots. And the most the major 10 countries in this geothermal power production are USA, Philippines, Italy, Mexico, Indonesia, Japan, New Zealand, Iceland, El Salvador and Costa Rica. It has seismic instability. Earthquakes have been linked with the use of geothermal energy in various parts of this world. But it has positive impacts like it is environment friendly, as it is extracted from the earth without burning fossil fuels, hence practically do not produce emissions. The geothermal energy is very beneficial and can achieve savings up to 70 to 80% over the conventional energy usage. It is renewable in nature because any projected heat extraction is small compared to the earth's heat content. The earth has an internal heat content of 1031 joules, approximately 100 billion times to the current global annual energy consumption. It reduces reliance on the fossil fuel, that is the dependence on fossil fuel decrease with increase in the usage of this geothermal energy. With high prices of oil, many countries are pushing companies to adopt this geothermal energy, which is a clean source of energy. It is independent on weather condition. This energy is produced from underground heat, so it is independent on the weather. Unlike solar energy, it is not dependent on the weather conditions. It is used for the cooking purpose. In many places, it has been observed that geothermal energy is used for cooking from ancient times. The best example is Gurudwara Sahib located at Manikaran, Himachal Pradesh. It was observed that rice served at Gurudwara is cooked from hot water springs emerged from underground earth. It creates low noise. Generation of electricity from the geothermal energies relatively produce low noise compared to thermal power plants. The main source of generation of noise only comes from fans used for the cooling system. Tidal energy. Its impacts are the energy of tides is converted into useful form of energy by constructing tidal barrages. It can be harnessed only at a few sites of the world. And the positive impacts are these are renewable in nature, and it is generated by the gravitational forces on the sun and moon along with the earth, resulting in low and high tides. It is effective at low speeds. The tidal energy is more effective at low speeds compared to wind energy because density of water is 1000 kg per cubic meter. So the density is nearly 780 times denser than air. The density of air is 1.29 kilograms per cubic meter. It reduces the dependence on the fossil fuel. The generation of power from tidal energy reduces dependence on the fossil fuel up to a certain extent. And this is predictable in nature. The tides are highly predictable with their well-known cycle, which make it easier to construct tidal energy systems with appropriate dimensions. But the negative impacts are, it is costly. So the high cost is required for the development of tidal barrages to withstand the huge loads produced from dammed water. It causes impact on the marine biodiversity. Building a dam across an estuary or bay may change the flow of tidal currents that affect the marine life of the area. The fishes and aquatic organisms may get affected due to passing through turbines. It affects the water quality. Due to the construction of dam, the water gets turbid due to sediment transportation. So to conclude, the large exploitation of the renewable energy sources like hydropower, geothermal energy, biomass and tidal has ecological, social and economic impacts. If we are able to monitor and rectify those negative impacts associated with these renewable energy sources, can help us to improve its benefits in the energy production. So in this module, we have seen various impacts of hydropower, mainly related with the construction of dams for its hydroelectricity production. We have seen the direct and indirect impacts of dams, its impact on the ecological resources such as vegetation, wildlife, aquatic biota, has seismic instability. We have also seen the impacts of the biomass energy like its low efficiency and negative impact on the food security and the high usage of fertilizer for the crop growth. We have seen the impact of tidal energy like its impact on the marine biodiversity, effect on water quality. Irrespective of these negative impacts, we have also seen the positive impacts of the hydropower, geothermal energy, biomass energy and tidal energy as renewable energy sources, clean energy and also reduces the dependency on the fossil fuel. Thank you.